I think it's fair to say that the X-Force cycle so far has been pretty strong. I think that's really fair to say with what we've seen with the heroes, with you can see their overwhelming strength and that they have very minimal weaknesses. And it's very, very hard right now until we get all the cards on the table to say who I think will be the absolute best hero of the cycle. Right? I think there's a good chance it could be any of the four that were announced before X-23. I think good arguments can be made for each one. Again, this is from a solo perspective. I think multiplayer is going to be much different, but from a solo perspective. I think X-23 right now is the weakest hero announced for X-Force. And here's the thing, that's not even a bad thing because the cycle as a whole so far seems to be very strong, like very, very strong. And I don't want people to confuse weakest with bad because I don't think she's going to be a bad hero by any stretch of the imagination. I think she has just more obvious weaknesses than the heroes that we've seen so far. So I want to talk a bit about her deck. We're going to go through her cards first and then talk a little bit about her and some of my concerns, and we'll talk about her strengths because she has plenty of them. And then we'll talk a bit about the aspect cards as well. So let's go check out her deck first. All right, this is the announcement page for X-23. So she's basically a clone of Wolverine. And a lot of people were concerned, well, how are they going to change this up enough that it doesn't feel too samey compared to Wolverine. And I think it's fair to say they've done a really good job thematically, so it doesn't feel like just female Wolverine, right? She does feel like her own hero. It's really, really cool. So anyway, they kind of go in the story and all that fun stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But as a clone of Wolverine, Laura Kinney, who's a 6 recovery, 6 hand size, 10 hit points. She puts her X-23 claws into play as a setup. Thankfully, they've learned that lesson. Shuffle either the Honey Badger ally or the Sisterly Bond event from your discard pile into your deck. Draw 1 card. Cool. So, as a clone, she has some similar features to them, including a massive recovery of 6 and a permanent upgrade from her claws. Her claws is a null upgrade. Permanent. Exhaust X-23 claws and take 2 damage. X-23 gets +2 attack until the end of the round. We're going to get into that take 2 damage because I think that's kind of huge. However, while her powers may be similar, the way X-23 fights is very different. So X-23 stat line is only a 2-1-2 stat line. I shouldn't say only. It's a decent enough stat line. She's a 5 hand size, 10 hit points. After X-23 takes any amount of damage, you ready up X-23 limit once per phase, which is a really interesting mechanic. And they'll explain this in a second, coming up in the next paragraph. But right away, you can tell as a solo player, okay, I'm going to thwart. I'm going to take the damage from the claws, which is 1/5 my life, right? This is important. 1/5 of your life is going to be taken away to ready up and then swing for 3, essentially, right? So with Wolverine, we were, oh my gosh, I already forgot what his cards were called, but basically you took 3 damage through the 3 cost event to do 8 damage. She's taken 2 to swing for 3. I think that's kind of important to note. Now, it can stack and it can get a little more powerful than that. So I'm not like bashing her right now, but I think it's important to put that in perspective that you're essentially taking 2 damage, or yeah, you're taking 2 damage to do 3 damage. So we need other ways to ready up more often. Luckily, there are other ways. So when Wolverine uses hit points as a resource for paying attacks, X-23 uses her hit points into a source of momentum. I think this is also key because I think people are going to play her wrong originally. And again, we'll get into that. So with the ability to ready after taking any amount of damage from any source once per phase, X-23 is all about using multiple actions in a round to overwhelm the villain with sheer force. Thwart with X-23 is respectable to thwart, which is good for solo, right? That's a fine number. Then use her claws to damage and thus ready her and grant her an attack buff for the rest of the round. Slash the villain with her boosted attack and then follow up with Honey Badger and ready X-23 again to keep the momentum. How are they doing that? Well, her signature ally is a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 life. By the way, it has X-Men keywords so that can work with some X-Men cards that are out there. After Honey Badger takes any amount of damage, ready X-23. Now, this isn't restricted per round, right? I think that's also important to note. This isn't restricted per round or per phase or anything like that. It's just whenever she takes damage, you're ready X-23, which is interesting. So you ready her up. If she gets the +2 attack where she's swinging 3, now she can get readied up from Honey Badger and then swing again. Now, that's pretty strong, right? At this point now, we're looking at taking 2 damage and taking 2 damage and dealing 6 damage, which is better. 2 for 6 is a much more respectable amount. It's pretty good. The only problem is you need to kind of build around now Honey Badger, who is a pretty weak hero. So this is almost feeling like, again, we're going to be starting to enter either Voltron territory like we did with Vivian and Vision, or you're going to have to figure out different ways to ready up X-23 through like a protection deck that we kind of do with Wolverine a lot on this channel. I think either way works, and it's already cool that through just, what, 3-4 cards, that you can already see 2 aspects kind of shine through already. Right. And I think that's one of the key takeaways with her is that aspect wise, she is going to work for all aspects, which I think is really cool. But I think she's going to be good in all of them, but not great. We'll get more into that in a second. So speaking of Honey Badger, X-23's adopted sister forms a core part of her kit. Her Claw Mastery, which is a 1-cost event, max 1 per round. Until the end of the round, X-23 gets +2 attack. So if we're doing the whole ready up thing, and we can ready up, let's just say twice, once through Honey Badger, once through her claws. So now she's looking at doing taking 2 damage to deal 8, right? No, 3, that'd be 4, 5, dealing 10, right? So 2 for 10 off of around 3 for 10 with basically the cost on this. Looking pretty strong, right? Looking pretty good. Again, more of a kind of a combo-y kind of feel hero right now, which is really cool, right? I really enjoy that. I think it's gonna be a cool design, but provides her extra benefits while playing Honey Badger in play. Regenerative Longevity, where it's a 1-cost event. You heal a total of 4 damage from your identity and Honey Badger, so you can split that up however you want. I think that'll be huge and cool. Okay. Can ensure both Laura and Gabby stay in the fight as long as possible. Use Sisterly Bond to boost Honey Badger stats, which is when Honey Badger thwarts or attacks, add 23's matching power to Honey Badger's power for this use. Again, if you have an X-23 that's pretty stacked, really can be really strong, right? She never, and then when she inevitably ends up in the discard pile, call on the power of Sisterhood to bring her right back, which is a pretty interesting card. 2-cost support, exhaust Sisterhood and discard an X-23 card from your hand. Search your deck and discard pile for Honey Badger and add her to your hand, then shuffle the deck. Cool. Even without Honey Badger, X-23 is still a force to be reckoned with. Her Pain Tolerance, which is a 2-cost upgrade. After you play an X-23 card, including this one, heal 1 damage from your identity. I think this is going to be a huge card that you have to get out pretty fast, which will be interesting. And then keep her healthy with her Grim Resolve. It's a 1-cost upgrade. Exhaust this card and take 1 damage to generate 1 science resource. This can give her a steady flow of resources and potential readies. If an enemy is causing trouble, inflict them with Puncture Wound, which I also think will be a pretty interesting card. Attached to an enemy that X-23 or Honey Badger attack this turn. Attached enemy gets -1 attack. After the player phase begins, discard this card and deal 3 damage to the attached enemy. Now, one thing we've always checked on when we go through decks is that we look at the card numbers right down the bottom here. So Claws, it's 1 out of 16, makes sense. Honey Badger's 2 out of 16, makes sense. Now, we don't know what 3 and 4 is, and we haven't seen any thwart cards yet, and we haven't seen any defense cards, so that's all that's really left. I'm going to assume that 3 and 4 is probably going to be thwart. That makes the most sense to me. There's usually always thwart cards. So I'm going to guess it's going to be a thwart card, which we don't know what that is, and that kind of puts her up in the air a little bit because she's going to need some extra thwart if she's playing any other aspect other than justice and maybe leadership. So 5, 6, 7 is probably all going to be Claw Mastery, which will be good because it will give us the ability to get those +2 attacks going more often. We have 8 and then it skips to 10. So 8 and 9 is probably Regenerative Longevity, which is good, right? Because now that gives us basically in her deck 8 damage healing or 8 healing worth basically of cards for herself and Honey Badger. There's 10 and then it goes to 11. So Sisterly Bond might be 9, 10, right? But I kind of doubt it. I'm assuming that it's going to be 8, 9 or 8, 9 for longevity, regenerative longevity, and Sisterly Bond is just going to be 1 card, which is fine, but you're not going to get that huge Honey Badger attack, which maybe is good because maybe you might be doing a Voltron build with her anyway, but whatever. 11 Sisterhood, which makes sense. Hold on. Don't know what 12 is. All right, so we don't know what 12 is. I'm going to guess it's going to be a defensive base card, but I don't know. It's weird that we didn't see any defense cards and that supports start at card 11, right? That's kind of weird. But anyway, so Pain Tolerance, 2-cost upgrade. After you play an X-23 card, heal 1 damage from your identity, which I think will be good. And then we had 11. 13 is going to be Grim Resolve, the 1-cost upgrade, which exhausts this card, take 1 damage, generate a resource. 14 is Pain Tolerance. 15 and I assume 16 will both be Puncture Wounds. By the way that they word this, with puncture wounds that inflict them with a puncture wound or two and keep the aggressive streak going. So it makes it sound like there's going to be at least 2 of them in the deck. So that's what we're looking at card-wise. So I think overall the kit's pretty good, but like I said, I have some concerns, so let's talk a little bit about them. All right, so once again, I want to stress this. I think she's going to be the weakest hero of this cycle. And I think this cycle has extremely strong heroes overall. So her being weak in this cycle is still very strong overall. And I think more importantly, her mechanics seem interesting, they seem unique, and they seem fun. Fun for me is the most important thing. If you know anything about me in this channel, I love Valkyrie, I love Hulk, and I love Wasp. And I love them because they can be difficult to navigate and difficult to pilot as heroes. Anything that's too straightforward, I find boring. Could be fun for a little bit, but in the long run, I find boring. X-23 to me is shaping up to be a jack of all trades, master of none. That's how I'm kind of feeling her out right now. We're still missing some cards, and I think we're missing some key cards right now. But I see that there's going to be a very difficult balance of doing 2 major things. 3, depending on how you look at it. 1 is keeping her health up. Now, again, she does have the card that allows you to heal yourself up after playing one of her cards, but we're talking about 15 out of the 40 cards that are possibly available, not including any upgrades or supports that may already be down on the table, because unless you're picking them up and putting them back down somehow or whatever to heal yourself up. So I feel like healing her, you're going to have some healing type cards in your deck in general, right? You're going to need first aids, not only for yourself, but probably for Honey Badger as well, which we'll get into in a second. And that either you use those cards or you use healing cards really from Protection. Protection has some good heal up cards and heal up and ready cards. And this brings to the other thing you're going to want to do with her a lot, is ready her up. A lot of her mechanics seem to be that she doesn't have that big attack card. She is the big attack, which is a cool mechanic, right? I'm going to be honest. It's a cool way of doing it, and I'm excited to see it. But she doesn't have that big event card. She has to be lined up well to do massive amounts of damage. Like, let's understand this. She could do massive amounts of damage, but everything has to be lined up in which to do it. She has to have Honey Badger out and ready to be used. She has to have enough life to take the damage from most likely her claws to be able to do. She needs Claw Mastery also at the table with a resource generator, or being able to just use a resource. You need to line up several things in a row to get that massive swing. But when you get it, I think it's going to be sweet. So that's why we have to focus on ready ups, because once you get her lined up with these massive attacks, you're going to want to keep readying her up, right? You're going to want to do other things to ready her up. You're going to want to play around with the idea of doing a Voltron build on Honey Badger to get her as much life as possible, so you can deal as much damage as possible to Honey Badger. So then you can either use leadership cards to ready her up and heal her, and then use like Clarity of Purpose, let's say, to deal more damage, generate a resource, all that fun stuff. You're going to want to do different things to like heal and ready Honey Badger, because there's no limit on how many times you can ready up than X-23. The only limit is on when X-23 takes damage. So I feel like now you're juggling 3 things, right? You're juggling 3 things, and in a solo game against much of the harder villains, it's going to be very, very hard to juggle 3 things on your own board, let alone the board out on the rest of the board, right? The villain's board state. Again, you're going to have to juggle her health, which she doesn't have a ton of, so you're going to have to run endurance. And I'm hoping that she has a card in there like Wolverine's where it gives her like +4 health points. And if it does, it changes a lot of her landscape. But you're going to have to juggle her health. You're going to have to juggle her ready ups and time them out pretty well, juggling her hand, and then also juggling Honey Badger to basically make her into a Voltron build. That's a lot. That's a lot to do. But I think because there's so many ways you can approach it, every aspect works, right? Like I said, leadership works in the sense that you can do a Voltron build with Honey Badger, figure out ways to ready her up and damage her kind of over or repeatedly and constantly. So then thus you can ready up X-23 over and over and use her to thwart and use Honey Badger for damage or whatever. I think aggression will make sense because she already has a lot of attack. Now if you add more attack on it, it's going to be, I think, really strong and really good. I actually think aggression is the aspect I'm least excited with her, but I don't think it's going to be bad by any means. Protection has a lot of healing cards and ready up cards, which we've already stated is going to be really helpful for her. Justice, I think, will be good because if you're playing a deck with her in which that you're taking a ton of damage and then you want to flip down to Alter Ego, do that massive 6 recovery, which is huge amounts of recovery. You're going to need to make sure that the main scheme doesn't advance, right? So you're going to need cards that confuse. You're going to need something like a Space Fan. You're going to need counterintelligence, whatever else, to make sure the villain doesn't scheme and the main scheme doesn't pop, which is where Justice comes into play. So you can already see there's going to be so many ways to play her, which I think is what makes her fun. It makes her appealing. I've seen, though, a lot of people say that she's going to be overly strong, super strong. I don't know. For solo, I don't know. For multiplayer, maybe. But solo, I don't know. There's a lot of things that have to line up just right. And it seems like a lot of balancing you have to do. And that's my biggest concern with her. And I think it's going to be why she's the weakest one. Again, all the other heroes we've seen so far are more straightforward. And they're pretty darn strong. And they don't need a lot of build out or a lot of things to go right for them to get to a strong strength level. It either happens right away or it's pretty easy to accomplish. So that's my only concern with her. Again, I want to stress, I don't think she's bad. I don't think she's going to be a bad hero by any means. I think she's actually going to be a lot of fun and it'd be really cool. But I do think she is right now our weakest hero that we've seen from this cycle. All right, so let's talk a bit about the aggression cards she comes with, because they're pretty interesting, and I think they're actually really good. And even if you're not interested in X-23, I think the aggression cards alone are worth it, because they add some big things. So, first you have Boom Boom, which is a 3-cost ally, 1/1/2 stat line, which is terrible if that's all you're looking at, but exhaust Boom Boom, add 1 boom counter to her. Then you may discard Boom Boom to deal 1 damage to each enemy for each Boom Boom counter on her. That's huge. That's so huge. That's so mind-blowingly huge. If you build it out so that Boom Boom can just kind of do her own thing, right? And you can just keep exhausting each round. You find ways to ready her up so then you can get more counters on her. She can just like wipe out the board, right? It's not capped whatsoever. There's no maximum amount onto this. It could deal damage on all the enemies. I almost vision this as like a beat cop almost. Where Beat Cop can just kind of exhaust to kind of keep Thor in there, but you're just building Beat Cop up to like take out that really bad minion that pops up. Well, now imagine there's 4 really bad minions and you don't want to deal with the villain as well. Boom Boom. Right? That's so cool. That's so cool in a deck that you know that has strong minions that you just put her down and you can just let her do her thing, right? Just keep readying it up to get those counters up as high as you want. Doesn't matter, as many as you want. And when that minion comes out, demolish them. That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm so excited for Boom Boom. I think this is a really cool ally that is going to make it into a lot of my decks. So then next up, they talk about Richter, which is a 3/1/2/3 ally. After Richter attacks, discard the top card of your deck. Deal 1 damage to each minion engaged with you for each resource on the discarded card. So at minimum, it's probably going to be 1 damage to each minion, which is cool, right? That you could do 2 damage and then 1 to everything else that's on the table. Again, there's no limit to the amount of minions that it damages. It's just all of them, which is, I think is cool. And then if it pulls out a double, it deals 2 damage to each minion, which can be good. And again, you can stack this on 1 minion, right? So kind of where you could deal a damage to a minion. So it's after Richter attacks, discard the top card of your deck. Then deal 1 damage to each minion engaged with you. So if it's the same minion that you just attacked, you can deal even more damage to that minion if you're trying to like chew up their life more. Pretty cool, pretty strong. All right, next up we have Now I'm Mad. It's a 1-cost upgrade. Play under any player's control, maximum player. While your hero's remaining hit points are less than half your hero's starting hit points, your hero gets +1 attack. Which is pretty cool, right? It's a pretty cool idea. It's kind of like in a lot of video games when you get like that final boost when your health bar is blinking in the red, you can use this. And you're probably not going to be thwarting much anyway because you're going to be making that final push. I feel like this card was kind of written for me because this is how I play the game pretty much. So I really like this card. I think it's really cool in the way it's designed. I think it's going to be used a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be like a Justice version of this as well at some point. That seems to make the most sense to me. All right, next up we have Moment of Triumph, which we've had already, but now it's like X-Men version of it. So it's a fine card. I still like it. I think it's good. All right, so Keep 'em Busy is a 1-cost player side scheme. Victory 0 Assault. Basic thwarts against this scheme use attack instead of thwart. All right, so it's not that you can use either or. You have to use attack instead of thwart. When defeated, the player who defeats this scheme removes 5 threat from the main scheme, and it costs 3 aggression. So most good aggression heroes have 3 attack anyway. So this is like a one-shotter, right? You just one-shot this whenever you need to remove 5 threat from a scheme. pretty cool, right? That's actually pretty darn strong and pretty darn good. I think we're seeing from all the side schemes at this point that they're very solid, and we're probably going to be using them all the time. And I like this card a lot. I think this is a good one. All right, the direct approach. It's a 1-cost upgrade tactic attached to a non-permanent side scheme. Limit 1 per side scheme. Attached side scheme gains assault. So kind of what we just saw with assault on this one. That you use attack. Now you can do the same thing on any non-permanent side scheme. Okay, like this is fine. This is good. I think it's gonna be good. Especially for a Hulk type build, right? Where there's been times, especially if you watch my channel, that Hulk gets overwhelmed by side schemes. Pop one of these out onto that side scheme, and then now Hulk is thwarting 3. I think that's pretty good. I think this is a card that does help Hulk a lot. I think that can actually help Valkyrie too, because you can pump up Valkyrie's attack pretty high. So I think it helps her too. But it makes aggression able to thwart more now, which I think is really good and really cool to see. So anyway, I like this card too. And then, all right, we'll get into link cards in a second. So X-23's pack comes with the new link cards, which aren't actually included in your deck, but rather are set aside when the game begins. Interesting. And can only interplay when the card they're linked to is resolved. In this case, the cards, these 4, are linked to Specialized Training, player size game, which is included in X-23's pre-built deck. Okay, so Specialized Training, I think this is almost a guaranteed card every single time. We'll get into it in a second. So 1 cost, 5 threat side scheme. Victory 0. When defeated, each player who does not control a specialized upgrade chooses 1 set aside specialized upgrade and puts it to play under their control. So it goes directly into play. All right, fine. So what are they? So Combat Specialist, again, even though it's a 2-cost upgrade, each player who does not control one chooses 1 set aside specialized and puts it into play under their control. You just put it into play. You don't have to pay the cost. So even though it has costs, it's only if you get rid of it and you have to put it back in, right? Important to note. All right, so 2-cost upgrade. Your hero gets +1 attack. Sweet. Hero response. After your hero performs a basic attack, exhaust this card, draw 1 attack. Or I'm sorry, draw 1 card. Okay, that's strong, right? That's really strong for an aggression type hero. That's really strong. I really like that card for her. There's a defense version, right? Same as that thing. 2-cost upgrade. Your hero gets +1 defense. After your hero performs a basic defense, exhaust this card, draw 1 card. Okay, for perfect defense heroes, really strong and really good. Now the same exact thing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Now we have Frontline Specialist, which is your hero gets +4 hit points. Important to note, your hero gets +4 hit points. So if you flip down and you only have 4 health left on your hero, I think you die, right? That's like a weird thing, but yeah, just FYI. I find it hard to believe they would have overlooked that now, this mistake. I think they purposely wanted to only be your hero. I think. I don't really know, but that's just an important note. So response after your identity, which is weird that they word it as identity because that could be your hero or alter ego, it takes damage from an enemy attack, exhausts this card to draw 1 card, which is pretty good as well. And then finally, the Surveillance Specialist. Your hero gets +1 thwart. After your hero performs a basic thwart, exhaust this card, draw 1 card. These are bonkers. I mean, I play Justice a lot. There is no reason not to have this card in a Justice deck. And by have this card, I mean have Specialized Training so you can get through this pretty fast as Justice. So now you're getting an I'm sorry, wait, where is it? There it is. A +1 thwart, which you can have another +1 thwart in a Justice deck anyway. And every time you thwart, you draw a card. It's so bonkers. I'm sorry, that's just so bonkers. So anyway, excited for it, and excited that with ready up type heroes, not that you could do this multiple times, but you can use like the +1 thing more often, right? So like obviously a hero that thwarts and readies up and thwarts again is getting they're not really getting like double worth out of this, but they kind of are, if you know what I mean. But anyway, so I'm excited to see this. I think it's really, really, really cool. And really strong overall. And then it goes into it that it's coming out in November. So going through her aggression cards, I think even if you're not excited for X-23, and again, I am excited for her. I think she's going to be fun to play. I think she's going to be tricky to play and not overly strong, my personal opinion. But I think these aggression cards are bonkers good. I think there's some stuff in here that's going to make Hulk a lot better. That's going to make Hulk a lot more interesting. Same with Valkyrie. Same with all these quote-unquote heroes that are less interesting or less fun. I think it's going to make them more interesting and fun. I'm really excited for how the specialized trading cards with the specialization stuff and whatever, like the what do they call them? They're linked. The link trait. I'm excited to see how the link trait works. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's a really fun idea. So I'm excited for that. I'm really excited to see how that works in particular. And I think for just those cards, this pack is worth it. Like this, the pack as a whole is probably the most excited I've been for a pack in quite some time. Maybe you can argue Cable, but Cable's not really a hero pack and comes in the box. But Cable is more or less introducing player side schemes. But I think this pack is just a huge pack for not only X-23, but for a lot of other heroes that can use these aggression cards and can use these linked cards. I want to stress one final time, because I know people are going to be upset with me about this, that I'm not saying that X-23 is this overly powered hero, that she's going to be goated and absolutely amazing. I do think she's going to be really tough to navigate. I think what a lot of people tend to do is they see how much potential damage she can do and don't realize for solo specifically how difficult it's going to be to get there. I don't think she's going to be super easy to pilot. And I think when you have tougher villains that are going to be hammering on you pretty quick and early, it's going to be really hard to juggle everything we talked about before. So that's my only, I wouldn't say worry, but I do think it's going to be a bit of a challenge with her. So maybe I'm completely off base. If I am, let me know down in the comments. Let me know down below what you think of her. Let me know your thoughts and how excited or not excited you are for her. And if you made this far, do me a huge favor, like and subscribe if you have not yet. I would greatly appreciate it. See y'all next time.